Today is the day. Today we look at an iconic, very influential character in MLP, aside of these ones. Today we look at Dinky Do. Wait, who is the script? Who is Dinky Do? Okay, but in all seriousness, Dinky was a background pony that broke the MLP community, in a good way. As early as 2011, Dinky was dominating the MLP community, people just couldn't get enough of her, and in a lot of ways she used to be the golden pony of the community alongside these ones. And for the longest time, Dinky was exactly that, but for as beloved as she was, it might surprise you that this isn't exactly the truth, and the truth is that the fall of Dinky was much earlier than you might think. So, what happened? How a once beloved and popular character seemingly disappeared from the eyes of the community? Well, let's find out. Talking about the early days of the MLPG4 community means going to a completely different world, one where the lore was almost non-existent, where the show was episodic and more comedic, and one where fans loved background ponies a lot. And while nowadays this sounds like a horrible idea, like why would you like a character that practically does nothing? Why not go with a more established, well-known character with a story, a personality, and an arc? But that's what made the MLP community so interesting back then. The community would take the smallest or more common characters and develop them, giving them a personality, quirks, a relationship, or even a story. And one of these characters would be Dinky. Now, it might seem surprising now that a character like Dinky would get developed by fans. I mean, she doesn't look that special, she didn't have any quirks or even that unique of a design. So, why did she become so popular? Well, the real reason why Dinky became so popular was because she was an accessory to Derpy. Wow, that sounds incredibly bad when I say it out loud, but seriously, fans adopted Dinky as Derpy's daughter at the time because of how similar they look. Which, you know what? I don't see it. Maybe if you squint, I can see where fans were coming from, kinda? I mean, they do have a very similar main design and color. Oh, and the fact that the name Dinky makes reference to Derpy's original name, but that's it. That and the fact that Dinky's a unicorn and Derpy's a Pegasus didn't help their case. But if fans cared... No. Fans as early as 2011 began to make fan arts and fanfics which expanded upon Dinky's life, personality, and even relationship with other characters. Of course, one of the most famous ones being as Derpy's daughter, with their dynamic usually being portrayed as either an adopted or biological daughter, and Dr. Hooves being her dad. Somehow? Another relationship that Dinky had was with Carrot Top, and while not as popular as with Derpy, the community made it popular. How? Well, they included Derpy. Of course, they did. And the way that it worked was basically that Derpy and Dinky may have moved with Carrot Top and at the time, her boyfriend. And this made sense at the time because fans speculated that Carrot Top and Derpy had a close friendship between the two. And while those are the most popular ones, my personal favorite is with Sparkler, also known as Amethyst Star. For one, is the one that makes the most sense. As much as I love the dynamic between Derpy and Dinky, I can't lie that it made zero sense. But in the other hand, you had Dinky and Amethyst Star. And the show somewhat confirmed this, with the two of them competing in the Sisterhood Social in Season 2. But the real reason why this pairing is my favorite was because it inspired the ship. Yeah, you heard that right, Dinky Do inspired the ship. This one being Derpy x Amethyst Star. And I know what you're probably saying, Sugarflake, why didn't you include this in your crack ship video? And in response to that is, how dare you? That, and because this ship was extremely short-lived. Like, I think Tri-Tail had a longer life in the fandom than this ship. And part of the reason why being that Derpy already had a way more popular ship at the time and since then. And if it wasn't that, well, it was the fans who in the end killed this ship. A ship that, honestly, deserved so much better than what it got. But this is all stuff we already know, so how about more interesting stuff? And believe it or not, Dinky has more weird and interesting aspects of her than her fanfics, relationships, or even fanarts might lead you to think. Like for example, her eyes.
What?
And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just look at this image in complete silence and tell me if you see anything weird. If you still don't see it, well, Dinky has the mare eye design instead of the Philly one, a detail that I didn't notice until very recently, and honestly, it's kinda cursed. And if that wasn't bad enough, she was part of the Mischievous Four. This was a group composed of 3 fillies that on their own had weird and bizarre oddities. Ruby Pinch being a Pegasus filly that in the expand of the show changed from a Pegasus to a unicorn to an Earth pony back to a Pegasus. Or Noi, yes, that's really her name, a filly that her name meant Net Operating System. Sokka. And finally, Princess Aurora, arguably the most popular member of the group. She was a filly that in some sense she was an alicorn, hence why her name was Princess Aurora. So basically this.
And so the Lord, when he made man, he said sugar, spice, and everything nice. But then he added an extra chemical called racism. Hope you guys are happy. Okay, guys, now let's sing for the 50th time. Everyone ready? Let's go.
And Dinky being a time traveler and being capable to choose her own destiny. And that's what made Dinky so fun and interesting, just the fact that she could be anything that the fans wanted, a daughter, a time traveler, or just a kid living her life. And this would be the Dinky that we knew for years to come. Or so you would think. The reality is that Dinky's popularity wasn't really that long, but wait a minute, Sugarflake, how can that be? Dinky has stayed a beloved and popular character all these years later. I know, and that's not to say that people have completely forgotten Dinky, not at all. But I feel like now, more than ever, fans are slowly forgetting who she is and what she stands for, and now they see her as another generic background pony. What I feel that makes this such a sad and scary thing to think about is the fans who grew up with her. The first 4 years of G4 feature some of the purest forms of Dinky in the fandom, either beyond artwork depicting her having fun with her mom, Pipsqueak, or the Crusaders, fanfics like Today, Tomorrow, and Forever, or the Dinky Doo trilogy. Stories that made us laugh, cry, and relate to her on a more personal level, or fun projects that came out of her, like Dinky's Destiny,
Luna?
And things just got better when fans made her dynamic with Derpy less one-noted. Yes, keeping her clumsy and naive personality, but also giving her moments of clarity so she could develop her own personality, outside of being just the clumsy pony. I would say that 2015 was the last year where you could still feel the traces of Dinky's popularity in the fandom. The last one where not only fans, but even the show writers acknowledged her existence and the love fans had towards her. Which, while not being the show's peak, especially for the older season fans,
and the show doesn't necessarily hold up in quality. I mean, that's debatable. There are some people who say it's still good. You know, Jesse and Hippo did the pony cast because they still enjoy it. But personally, for me, by the end of season 4, I didn't particularly give a shit anymore. Like, not to say that the show was terrible or anything. I think there was a lot of great episodes in season 4. Like, you know, I think the reason that it fell apart is just that how long would anybody be interested? And granted, the fandom is still happening. There are still people making My Little Pony analysis videos that are getting as many views as they used to. You know, there's still. So, like, it's not as though the fandom's completely dead, but people moved on. It was no longer the new hotness. It lasted a good 4 years or so in the spotlight, and then people moved on to Steven Universe and fucking Star versus the Forces of Evil, or they became anime fans, if they are not still bronies. So.
Not only that, but it was also a transitional period the show was going through, from the simple, slice-of-life comedy to a more serialized and lore-driven series, one that fans would enjoy for years to come. Aside of that, it was a time where more and more characters were beginning to get introduced and developed, characters that were more flashy and complex than your average background pony. And after the episode Slice of Life aired, Dinky became a more niche and situational character in the fandom. And in the show, with her appearances being less and less frequent the more the show went on, and while Dinky's role in the show never was that big in the first place, the Golden Age of G4 gave us plenty of Dinky material to work with. And despite a lot of people remembering her as Derpy's daughter, my favorite interpretations of her went when she was her own independent character, where we could explore her more simple and funny side, teasing Pipsqueak or going in wacky adventures with her friends. And I think Dinky was always at its best when she wasn't attached to Derpy. As the fandom moved on and the Dinky hype died down is when I feel the fandom really began to grow. Long gone were the days of nameless ponies in the background, or edgy and cruel humor being the standard. New faces came into the community, and with them, new characters, arcs, and fan favorites. I make this video as a reminder of what Dinky represents, not just as a character, but also as an era. One that is long gone. One that can't ever be replicated. But also one that could never last forever. I know there will be people who don't agree with me, but the sad reality is that Dinky is beginning to be forgotten, and it's hard not to feel bad about that. But even if Dinky stayed at its height of popularity, even if the show never changed at the middle point, I don't think MOP would have survived all these years later. Sure, it would have appealed to the fans at the time, but it would never attracted so many new fans. We wouldn't have all the characters and stories that now fans adore, and while scary or even surprising to think that now, I think it's for the better. Characters like Dinky aren't always meant to last forever, and sometimes these background ponies don't only represent the show, but also how we used to be. We all used to be kids that drew, wrote, or even played with a toy of these characters. We made up stories, crazy headcanons, and theorized what they would do next, and some of us even related to them on a more personal level. And just like the show, we either grew out of them or we move on to something new. And while time passes, the only thing that we can do is remember them for what they were. Remember the joy of a simpler time in a community that was just beginning to flourish. One that, at least in my case, helped me find people who were just like me, people who accepted me for who I am, and one that, in the craziest ways, changed my life. And even if Dinky is forgotten, even if one day she's just regarded as another random pony, something that we'll never forget is who was the original Golden Filly in the MOP community. And for that, the only thing I can say is